Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. As I'm sure you know, my name's Lewis and I'm a British English teacher whose aim it is to allow you to immerse yourself in English. So with that in mind, this is another episode of my new format called Newsround, which is a little bit of a summary of 5 interesting and upbeat and hopefully not depressing news articles that I've read, summarized, and now I'm going to read to you so you can improve your listening, learn new vocabulary, and learn about interesting things happening in the world. And if you want, you can try to shadow me, which is copy how I speak with the tone, the intonation, and the stress so you can improve your English fluency. So, with that being said, let's get the ball rolling. But wait, what am I going to be speaking about today? To kick off, we're going to speak about how extreme temperatures may affect next year's World Cup. After that, we're going to have a look into how singing can be healthy, how it can be beneficial for your health. Thirdly, we're going to talk about the Louvre, this famous French museum in the capital, Paris, and how they are raising prices. Next up, an interesting article, which personally I kind of like, and it's all about foods that make you smell attractive. Weird, isn't it? Then fifthly, last but not least, we're going to explore how these luxury paradise islands, the Maldives, have gone from being a location which was only available for the rich and famous, but now it's become surprisingly affordable. That being said, you've had your little introduction, now it's time to get started. So article number 1. Extreme heat threatens 2026 World Cup. I hope not, anyway. Now, allow me to read it. Climate change and extreme heat pose a significant threat to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which will be co-hosted by the USA, Canada, and Mexico. Research, including a study published in the International Journal of Biometeorology, indicates that almost 90% of the 16 host stadiums could face potentially dangerous heat levels. Scientists use the wet bulb globe temperature, WBGT, which is a metric for human heat stress, and found that 14 out of 16 locations could exceed the critical 28 degrees threshold, beyond which some governing bodies recommend delaying or postponing matches. Furthermore, 4 locations could hit a more dangerous 32-degree WBGT, and the risk is highest during the typical afternoon kickoff times. So as a result, experts are urgently calling on FIFA to rethink match scheduling, particularly in high-risk, non-air-conditioned venues like Miami, Monterey, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Boston, and New York. The recommended intervention is to move games outside the hottest afternoon hours to protect player welfare and prevent heat-related illnesses. And the issue extends beyond the professional game, as reports also show that extreme heat threatens the viability of grassroots pitches across North America. So, that's the first article, all about extreme heat in the USA, Canada, and Mexico. And it's related to next year's World Cup, which, personally, you probably know that I'm a big football fan, a big footy fan. As they say in North America, a big soccer fan. So, this is not good news for me, because if a lot of the matches are played later on, that means here in Europe, we'll have to wake up in the middle of the night to watch some big matches, which, of course, isn't the same as enjoying the day with your friends, with daylight in a pub, in a beer garden, and watching the matches. But perhaps it's for the best for the players and their own welfare, because I wouldn't want to be playing football if it's like 40 degrees outside, so I get it. Nothing has been decided just yet, but of course, I'm slightly worried that a lot of the matches next year will be postponed or put off, so they're played late in the evening in USA, which would mean very, very late at night in Europe. Let's see what happens, and a quick question for you. Are you excited about the World Cup? Are you looking forward to next year's World Cup? And who do you think's going to win? England? Maybe? Now let's move on to the next article. And it's all about singing and how singing is related to your health. So the title is simply How Singing Can Improve Your Health. Now, I'll read it, then I'll go over the information once again. Engaging in singing, particularly as part of a group or choir, offers a range of scientifically proven health benefits that go beyond simple enjoyment. Singing is a powerful form of respiratory therapy that forces the lungs to breathe deeper and more rhythmically, which has been shown to improve symptoms for conditions like long COVID and chronic breathlessness. The physical act of holding notes activates the vagus nerve, a major nerve pathway that regulates the heart rate and controls the body's stress response, leading to a measurable reduction in stress hormones like cortisol and an increase in protective antibodies. Neurologists have observed that singing activates widespread areas of the brain, including language, memory, and emotion networks, making it an effective tool for maintaining cognitive function in older adults and helping patients with conditions like Parkinson's or early stage dementia connect to memories and stabilize their voices. Finally, group singing is a powerful antidote to loneliness, boosting endorphins and fostering a critical sense of community belonging. So there we have it, singing and how it can improve your health. Now, I'm a terrible singer. I cannot sing to save my life. I'm not able to, sing with a loud voice. I never remember any lyrics either. When I go to a karaoke place, I'm an absolute nightmare. People have to hold their ears to try and not hear it, because if not, they might end up screaming and shouting and throwing things at me because I'm that bad. But aside from that, aside from the fact that I'm a terrible singer, I do think that when you sing, you feel a little bit happier. If you have ever been to a karaoke place and you've just finished singing, you have this rush of adrenaline. And maybe that makes you feel happy as well. I'm not sure exactly. But what the article is saying is that, it helps to, ease the symptoms of long COVID and breathlessness. If you feel breathless, it's like you're wheezing and you are out of breath. And then, apparently, it also helps you to develop more antibodies, these protective antibodies that help your immune system fight off disease. And at the end, of course, it also mentioned that it's good for your brain. Neurologists have studied how singing can be beneficial for Parkinson's, dementia. So I think it seems like all of us should start singing a lot more. And maybe we should join a choir. And it's also interesting because, for example, my grandma and granddad, they used to go to a choir, and it was a way of having community because they'd go to church or to like the village community center and they'd have a chat, have something to eat, catch up with friends, and they'd be all together singing. So it's a great way to combat loneliness, as the article said. But yeah, singing and karaoke. When was the last time you went to a karaoke place? And what's your go-to karaoke song? Mine is probably something by Robbie Williams or Oasis. One of these. Wonderwall, perhaps. Or Angels by Robbie Williams. Now let's continue with our third article. And as I said at the beginning, this is related to the Louvre, this famous museum in Paris, which I've personally never been to. I've walked past it twice, but I'm not a big fan of museums, and I'm not very patient either. So if I have to wait an hour or 2 hours in the queue before I then pay €50 or more to walk around a museum, it's just not for me. I'm not a very cultured person, but I'm sure you are much more cultured than I am in this regard. But the title of this article is "The Louvre Raises Prices for Non-EU Tourists." So, let me read it. The Louvre Museum in Paris has implemented a major new pricing policy, significantly increasing ticket costs for visitors who are not citizens of the European Union. This move is part of a growing trend among major European cultural institutions to differentiate pricing based on the visitor's country of origin or residency status. The policy aims to address several issues, including managing the increasing volume of international tourism and raising crucial revenue for the museum's ongoing maintenance and operations. While the change impacts travelers from outside the EU, it is expected to have a substantial effect on overall visitor spending in the French capital. The Louvre justifies the decision as a means of revenue diversification and an attempt to subtly regulate the flow of non-European visitors during peak times, ensuring a more sustainable and manageable experience within the world's most visited museum. So there we have it. The Louvre raising prices. And I was already complaining about how expensive it is. And although I'm British and I have a British passport, maybe I could get a cheap version of the ticket because I'm a resident here in Belgium, which obviously is in the EU. I'm not sure, but to tell you the truth, I'm probably not going to find out. I'm not going to go back to the Louvre anytime soon. But how do you feel about this little article? It seems maybe unfair for me. It seems like they're kind of taking advantage of people because, of course, you need to raise money to help the maintenance of the museum. And I get that. That's necessary. But I mean, well, after the robbery at the Louvre a couple of months ago, maybe they've already lost a lot of money and they want to get their money back through raising prices to non-EU travelers. So I think it is a little bit unfair to people who travel so far, and then there are two different prices, one for EU residents and another for the rest of the world. I get it if it was limited just to residents of France or French citizens. I think that would make more sense to keep it cheap for locals and then more expensive for everyone else. But the EU is a big place, so it's very cheap for many people in the EU. But maybe it's not very cheap, but it's cheaper than it is for people in the rest of the world. But yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this because I wouldn't go to the Louvre anyway. I think it's a rip-off, and it's not my cup of tea. It's not something that I'm into. But yeah, have you been to the Louvre? And if so, was it worth the money? How much did you pay? And was it a rip-off? All right, next, the fourth article, and this one is probably the one that I am the most excited about because it's related to food and smell as well. So the title is Foods That Make You Smell More Attractive. And I'm trying to think off the top of my head, and honestly, none come to mind. I can't think if there are really any foods that make you smell more attractive. There's food that smells good when you're hungry and you want to eat it, but by consuming food, usually just makes you smell more. Like an example would be raw onion. When you eat raw onion, your breath stinks. The same could be said about garlic. And then a nice funny thing is if you eat asparagus, when you go to the toilet and you go for a wee, ugh, it stinks. Phew! But let me read it and let's find out exactly what the article has to say. So, research into human chemical communication suggests that diet significantly influences a person's natural body odor and perceived attractiveness. Contrary to what might be expected, some foods with strong aromas, like garlic, have been shown in studies to make men's sweat smell more pleasant and attractive to women. Wow. Scientists speculate that this is due to garlic's health-boosting antioxidant and antimicrobial properties, signaling a healthier mate. Conversely, diets heavy in red meat have been associated with body odors rated as less pleasant and more intense. The most effective way to produce a sweeter, more floral scent is through consuming a high proportion of fruits and vegetables. These plant-based foods, particularly those rich in carotenoids, contribute to a healthier skin color and a more appealing scent profile. The body's unique scent is created when the chemical compounds from food are metabolized in the gut and secreted through sweat, where they interact with skin bacteria. Okay, well, would you look at that? What a surprise! Garlic makes you smell more attractive, especially after sweating. Who'd have predicted it? Who'd have known it? What a surprise, right? So as the article says, basically, by having more fruits, vegetables, and healthier food, it makes you smell more attractive. Perhaps because it seems like you are healthier, so biologically, historically, a potential mate, a potential partner to have children with, would then be able to detect if you are healthy or not. So I think that's the bottom line, and that's the summary of this little article. And it's another reason why we should eat more fruit and vegetables and eat less meat. Because, as it says here, eating too much red meat can make your body odors less pleasant and more intense. Wow. Now, were you aware of this? Maybe you could have guessed it, but tell me, whenever you eat asparagus, does your wee smell bad? And if you eat a lot of garlic, can you notice when you have bad breath? Because personally, I can't, and I eat a lot of garlic. And my fiance also has a lot of garlic, but I never realize if I smell bad or not. Or maybe I'm just living in ignorance. Now let's finish off with the fifth little article, this fifth summary. And it's about the Maldives. Oh, beautiful. So the The title of the article is How the Maldives Became Surprisingly Affordable. Okay, I don't know how affordable it really is. I might have a look on Skyscanner and Booking.com after recording this to see if it really is cheap or not, because I'm a bit skeptical about this one. And my sister, she went to the Maldives on her honeymoon. So it can't have been too expensive, but I don't think it was that cheap either. But let's read the article. Let's find out for ourselves. The Maldives, historically a secluded destination reserved for the ultra-rich and luxury travelers, has become surprisingly accessible to budget and mid-range tourists, thanks to a recent quiet revolution in its tourism policy. This transformation was ignited by government reforms over the past decade that permitted locals to open guest houses on uninhabited islands. Prior to this, tourism was strictly confined to expensive, privately owned resort islands. This major shift has led to the proliferation of over 1,200 guest houses across 90 local islands, effectively creating a new, more affordable segment of the tourism market. Visitors can now stay with local families, use public ferry services, and experience the country's everyday culture, rather than being restricted to the sterile, overwater villa experience. This change has not only made the Maldives accessible to a broader audience, but has also allowed local Maldivian families to benefit directly from the tourism economy. So there you have it. That is the last article. And it's all about this revolution, a quiet revolution, from only luxury travelers and rich travelers going to the Maldives to now it becoming a normal thing for budget or mid-range tourists. And the reason why this has been happening is because, well, the locals have been allowed to open guest houses, which I assume will be available to book on Airbnb or Booking.com and at a much lower rate than all of these amazing accommodation places which are floating on water. I'm sure you can picture what I'm imagining, where you've got all of these little huts and little villas that are on wooden kind of planks, and they are kind of floating above this amazing crystal clear water. So now you have two options. If you would like to visit the Maldives, you can either go with the villa experience floating on water, or you can experience the authentic Maldives and stay with local Maldivian families. And that way you're also helping to help the local people, and it is benefiting the local economy. So it sounds interesting to me, and I must admit that the Maldives isn't a place that grabs my attention, despite how beautiful it looks and how amazing all of the beaches and the islands look. I don't know. It doesn't really appeal to me, because I love going to beach resorts and going to tropical places, but I want a little bit more. I want a little bit more adventure. I want more towns and cities with its own individual vibe. But, well, I might end up going to the Maldives if it's so affordable. As I said, I'm going to check out online and see if really it is a bargain or it's a bit of a ripoff. And how about you? Have you ever been to the Maldives or a similar kind of paradise island? Let me know in the comments. And on that note, we will finish off this week's news round. I hope you liked it. If so, leave a like and follow for more, and I'll see you in the next episode. So thanks once again, lots of love, and see you next time. Bye!